Going here. I want to welcome you to the Crappie Madness event here in Memphis, and gosh, we're proud to be here. I know I see a lot of people here that's got crappie eyes, without a doubt. These young gentlemen here should be fishing instead of being here today, but I'll get them in the water maybe after it's over. My name is Ronnie Capps, and my partner Steve Coleman is here with me today. And we grew up at Reelfoot Lake in West Tennessee, way on down the road a little bit from here. But we have fished all over the country, and over the years, probably over 30 years of lake experience all over the country and in tournaments. And we have fished all the competitive trails that's out there. The ACT now is one of the newest ones, American Crappie Trail. But we fished Crappie Masters, and way back when Crappie Thon it was, and then Crappie USA. Is any of these names ringing a bell? Did some of y'all ever fish some of them? Yeah. There was one even before Crappie Thon. It was called Panfisher Rama. That puts us way on down the road as far as being old. But we fished quite a few tournaments in our days, and we've been fortunate along the way to win a lot of those, and probably most of all fortunate in the regard that we learned a whole lot from fishing those tournaments, and that's why we're here today, to share some of what we've learned along the way over the years, and migrating through the technology that we've been put in front of us these days compared to where we started is an unbelievable thing, really. But we got a little bit of a set program. We're going to talk about multi-fold fishing and minnow rigging here. B&M happens to make, B&M Pole Company happens to make our deadliest weapon, the double minnow rig with a live bait. It's a live bait rig. It's pre-tied that you can buy right off the shelf anymore. And B&M also makes some of the best quality crappie poles, without a doubt, that's on the market. There's a lot of poles in front of people these days. You'll see a lot of different varieties and brands out there. I can tell you that there's many more tournament anglers that have had input into the poles that you'll see on the shelf by B&M. And they have basically been fine-tuned to do the job that we need them to do. And that's catch fish and win tournaments and put more fish in your boat. I see people buying cheaper, lower grade equipment, and usually if they're serious about crappie fishing, they'll end up coming back and buying the good stuff before it's all over with. So anyway, we'd appreciate you having a look at B&M rods and all their product on the shelves before you get out of here. They've been great to us, and they're the ones that's putting us out here today to hopefully help you catch a few more fish. So before I start the program, I might actually end up a little later on a set of slides and stuff that we've kind of threw together. But honestly, I know I have quite a variety of fishermen. I already tell. I've already talked to two or three, and I'd like to get just some idea as to a lake that somebody might call their home lake, just where their home lake might be, what state they fish in, whatever, and see where you're coming from here. I can help you out with some of those lakes and also techniques, and we'll just let it flow as it will, because I'd hope that I could get everybody in here a little piece of information to help you catch a few more fish. And so if you will be thinking anything you want to ask me crappie, I guarantee you I'll have an answer. It might not be the right one, but it'll be mine, and my best one. And I don't hide much at all. Honestly, we have worked really hard at getting where we're at, and pretty much anything you work hard at, if you work hard enough, you can get on top. But we're not magic at catching crappie. We work hard at it and pay attention. So anyway, hopefully we can help y'all out. These guys from Toledo Bend, I got that already up front. Man, I've had some experience down there. I had a friend that Ken, matter of fact, that always told me how big the crappie were down there, fishing under bridge pilings and you name it about this time of year, and really deep water. Like, well, so I'm immediately trying to relate it to somewhere I've been. But anyway, where else? What other lakes are popular here? I know we got Grenada and Arcabutler and Sardis.
Yep.
Some of the local ones.
Hunter's Rest.
Hunter's Rest. Where?
40-acre lake. About
Oh.
15 steps from my house.
Well, now
private
that's
lake,
cheating. You're cheating. Fishing in a farm pond, right?
It's not a farm pond.
Well, you know what? You can catch them in a farm pond just like you can catch them in Kentucky
Farm
Lake.
pond's about a half an acre.
Yeah. Is there any big lakes you fish?
Nope.
Nope.
Don't need
Just
to.
right there. Well, shoot. You
I'd
know,
like to. I'm going to start.
I don't know if I'll help you or not.
Someday I'll retire.
I bet you like to put them in the grease at the end of the day.
Ooh.
Yeah. That's right. You know, a lot of, yes, sir. Shoots off the Mississippi. Yeah, golly. Whittington and Lee and Washington and Paradise and quite a few down here that we've Tunica. Got quite a bit of info on some of them. I can help you out, maybe. Anywhere else? I know people have to fish Grenada. Yeah. No tournament's ever been there. Nope. Any other lake? I'm trying to. Is it a deep or muddy or shallow or stained? Green or brown? Brown. Grenada like Pickwick. You say Pickwick? Yes, sir. Know quite a bit about that. Try to help you out there. Any other lake? Just where? Yeah. I know about that. You do too. I probably need to be asking you questions. Yeah. Okay. You got one? Where? I can't even hear. Enid Horseshoe. Enid. Got a lot of numbers in Enid compared to some of them. Maybe not quite the size of Sardis and Grenada, but yep. Okay, well good. Every lake I've heard mentioned,
Except one.
including yours, honestly, there's a technique that never stays home when we go serious fishing. When we're fishing a tournament, there's a set of rods that'll be in my boat, and they'll be rigged with double minnow rigs that I intended on talking about to start with anyway. That's probably one of our deadliest weapons as far as catching fish, and every one of these lakes that you mentioned, I promise you that they can be used in it, and probably surprise you if you've never done it before. And I know it's going to surprise you if you've never done it before. Probably more so than these other guys. But I bet you fish with one pole a lot. Fish standing structure or structure that you put in.
Whatever's there.
Whatever's there. Do you ever, how deep is it?
About 25.
Yeah. I bet you, if I rig you up minnow rigging out there, I don't care if well, it's probably froze over this morning, but maybe not.
Oh, no.
Well, okay.
It's
Then get that
perfect
cold.
day.
Perfect
I'm gonna
days,
go home
right.
and do it.
I bet you'll be surprised at what you bring home if you give it a shot sometime. But
Well, that's why I'm here.
That's right. Okay, good. Well, I'll go on and start talking about what I've started talking about here. The minnow rig set. There's two weapons that'll be on board our boat. I don't care where we go. The main one is a minnow rig set, the double live bait minnow rig. That is if we're fishing tournaments that will allow us to use live bait. Some tournaments don't, but most of them do. And the ones that we feel the strongest in are basically those tournaments where live bait's used and basically using the rig that we grew up using. I can tell you we started way back in the 80s fishing competitively. Those trails have taken us all over the United States. We've gone west out in Texas and Oklahoma and east to Santee and a lot of places on the East Coast, Florida and north all the way to Michigan is about as far north as we've ever competed in a crappie tournament. But all those places are so different. Every lake seems to have a different attitude, but all of them, I can say you can be very effective with the minnow rig that I mentioned earlier. The minnow rig is put out by B&M. This happens to be a older packaging of the rig. They've been on you may have seen them in Walmart or wherever. They've been on the shelf for quite a while. The new The new package will be a soft pack. It'll be a little bit more accommodating, a little bit easier to get into for sure, and also probably fit in your tackle box a little bit better than that big card. This happens to be one that just came out of the pack. I'm gonna let Steve unwind this for me here in a second. That happens to be a 3/8 size. These rigs are designed basically for a variety of situations and depths of water. The rig, according to the size sinker, could be fished in 25, 35 foot of water at Pickwick with you guys, all the way to 2 or 3 foot of water, 5 foot of water at Reelfoot, down to the 1/4 ounce. The 1 ounce is the largest that we have on the shelf, and the 1/4 ounce is a small. But they'll go 1/4, they'll go 3/8, a half, 3/4, and a 1. There's 5 sizes. Every one of those sizes will migrate in line size. The larger the sinker, the larger the line size. Also, they'll migrate in length. When I'm talking about length, I'm talking about distance from the hook, basically from the hook, one hook to another. This happens to be the 3/8. If I were holding up the 3/4, which would definitely be a rig you'd use in a lot deeper water, the distance between hooks would be quite a bit different. What basically you're trying to do when you're creeping through the water column, you want to cover as much water as you possibly can. When you have fish that are at a variety of depths, a lot of times, at the end of the day, covered more water is going to put more fish in your boat. So, but this little jewel, it looks pretty simple, but I'm telling you, it is it's a complicated item. Very hard to tie it to spec. Those links, the length of that dropper from the 3-way swivel at the top, and also the length between the sinker and the hook on the bottom, the body of the rig, that length, they are precise. You will not get them tied. They won't be a couple millimeters out of kilter when you take them off the card. They'll be all the same. But it's basically tied to our spec, what we would suggest using at a given depth of water. And the deeper the water, like I say, the deeper the water, the heavier the rig we typically use. Yeah, you got a question? Yeah, go for it. The line is wrapped 5 times. It's looped 5 times through that sinker. 5 times is I'll run 6 sometimes, but 5 is what you need to hold it for sure. There's some assets to that rig that will benefit you in a situation where you're dealing with a lot of structure. One is that hook. That happens to be a number 2, 214 Eagle Claw hook on there. Those rigs can be tied with a variety of hooks, but I'm telling you, that is the lightest hook that has the size with the right wire size to be able to basically bend that hook out most of the time versus breaking it. It's going to bend. You get it hung up, you can't use the sinker to get yourself unhung with it. That hook will usually bend out for you before the rig line breaks, and it's designed for that. That was a 3/8 that I was holding, but the hook size is a number 2 Eagle Claw. It's a 214 EL, extra light wire. EL it stands for extra light, but that 214 number 2 is my favorite hook in the world. I can catch a 3-pound crappie with that hook. I can catch a 3-ounce crappie with that hook. That hook is, I've used a bigger hook at times. I've used a heavier wire at times. But day in and day out, that is my pick on hooks. I don't care where I go or what I'm fishing for. One other asset to that hook, other than basically straightening out when you get in a hang or whatever, it is so light that your minnow can be very, very active on that hook compared to others that are heavy hooks. You would be surprised how much difference there is between a heavy hook and a light hook as far as the action of a minnow goes. And everybody knows the more real a minnow looks down there, the more chance you got of getting a big bite. So we're all about getting a big bite. Also notice this rig is pretty simple. There's no bells, whistles, spinners, beads, or color to it. It's always been our standby that we want to approach a tournament size fish in a kind of a camo mode. I don't want him to be attracted to nothing out of the ordinary other than that minnow, period. And I feel like, and it's been successful for us to put a live minnow in a piece of structure or in front of a big crappie's face. Let that minnow do the work that it's going to do and catch the fish for us, really. A little bit more complicated than that, but that's basically why that rig's on the market today, yeah. Okay. That's fine. Yes, sir. Okay. You know, about a 2.5 to start with, and I'll go up to a 3 1/4. Sometimes, depends on the size fish I'm really chasing and the time of year, how aggressive the bite is. Very important. Well, I'm telling you, that ain't the case sometimes. I've caught plenty tournament grade fish on some smaller minnows before, honestly. It just depends on how aggressive they are and the time of year. I'm telling you, this time of year, you can go on up on minnow side. The minnow, really, they'll bite a bigger one sometimes this time of year better than they will a smaller one. But it's just say July, when we having some very stressful conditions with water quality, I'm putting some of the smallest minnows that I can find on there. You'll notice after a few years messing with live bait that those small minnows will give you a lot more action when times are hard. I'm talking low oxygen conditions in the lake. You'll get a lot more action out of a small minnow than you will. Put your big old fat one on there, and he's out of breath. He's had it pretty quick. And they're not going to bite it anyway. At that point in time, those fish they don't need energy. They don't need fuel. I'm telling you right now, pre-spawn, before these fish hit the spawning mode, they're trying to gobble up pretty much everything in their face. And they will bite a big minnow, and they'll bite it aggressive all the way up through May and June even sometimes. Yes, sir. As that water temperature cools and stays cool now, it's probably in the 40s, I bet. If you start seeing it ease into 50s, you could move up. But honestly, this rig is made to fish vertical. And if you can detect any forward movement with your boat, you're probably going fast enough. We catch many fish sitting dead still with this rig. For an example, at home, this time of year, cold weather, most fishermen will fish this rig going downwind, a whole lot warmer, with that wind to your back. They'll be using either a drift stock or pulling some apparatus on the back. We love to use logging chain. I know it sounds kind of far-fetched, but anything to slow your boat down with going with the wind. Basically, you want to stop your boat and be able to pull it along with your trolling motor ever so slowly. That's the technique of choice at home. They use these minnow rigs through stump flats. It's probably 12 foot deep, 14 foot deep this time of year. The fish they'll be right on the bottom. You'll not catch many of them more than 2 foot off the bottom, and they're just creeping ever so slow. And 3-hour period, somebody may cover a couple 100 yards, 300 yards maybe. Some of the old timers basically won't cover 100 yards in that length of time. What they'll do is move up a little, and they'll kind of fan their boat. They'll fan it left or right. Move up, they'll fan it left or right. And they've got 6 or 8 rods out, taking their sweet time. Pretty often they'll be bumping stumps. When you bump a stump with that thing, you'll figure out how to get it unhung. Pretty easy. Don't be in a hurry to get it unhung, because that's where you should get a bite. That's why the slow movement is so critical. These regions don't ever try to take off going fast with these things and a bunch of structure, because you'll get in trouble real quick. Not to say that they hadn't been efficient for us going fast. We won a national championship with one of these rigs that was custom made to fish the water depth we was in, and put it right in front of the fish at the depth they wanted to be in, and I was using a 2-ounce sinker. And we was going 1.2 mile an hour, and we had 50 boats inside of us, sitting there watching us win the national championship with the craziest looking minnow rig you ever seen in your life. I will never forget when we got home from that tournament, I took those rigs off and I hung them in the windowsill. They hung there for a couple of years, and every time I looked at it, I couldn't believe that we won a dang national championship with something looking like it did. It was way out of balance with weight size versus the distance between the hooks. But the deal was, it was in the fall year. Those fish wasn't very aggressive. They would bite it going slow, but they would not get on that hook. They'd let you know they were there. They'd grab the minnow, sometimes pull some scales off of it, but they would not get on that hook. So our answer to basically getting the fish to stay on the hook was beat up. And I just kept increasing the speed until I quit catching fish, basically. But we really started hooking a lot of the fish just by speeding up. Not with a 2 ounce. Not with a 2 ounce. That's the deal. You want to keep it vertical. That's right. That line is telling you a story every second. As you go down the ledge or a edge of a creek channel, or even just across a flat, watch those lines. That's the thing. File out faster. That's right. It was basically a reaction strike versus a scent bite, if you will, versus a ease up and bite it because it's real kind of bite. So, yes, sir. Okay, no, we got all. All right. Yeah. All right. I'm going to give you my best answer.
Explain the setup to them first.
Yeah. I'll give you my best answer. If you're not set up already with this, there's a lot of product out there on the market. The very best pole holders that's on the, Millenniums. There's all kinds out there. They're on T-bars. I guess you got like 4 rods on one T-bar kind of thing. Yes. They work. But I'm telling you, the best pole holder out there is an independent holder. It'll be 1 rod holder that'll hold 1 rod independent of the other rods you have out. Tight Lock makes one. It's called the Widowmaker, and it's my design. Driftmaster also makes one, and that's my design. It's called the Gunslinger. Those are independent rod holders. If you ever compare a T-bar to an independent, I promise you won't ever want to use a T-bar again. There's so many advantages to having them separated. First of all, keeping those rods separate, you're not disturbing the other 3 rods. Say if you had 4 in a rack, and you're in a lot of structure, every time you touch that 1 rod, the other 3 are vibrating. You can't even, there's a lot of negatives to that in my book. I can adjust those independents in tight, out wide, and snap of a finger. I can jack them back and run wide open my trolling motor to a good another spot with all the hooks out of the water. I never take the pole out of the rack whatsoever. You can't do that with a T-bar. A bunch of advantages that you'll see down the road possibly. But get you a rod holder that'll hold, say, 4 rods to start with. I recommend the length of the rod being a 12-foot if you're going to just start doing this. My favorite all around is a 14. We competitively fish with 16-foot rods in Mississippi for sure, around Grenada and some of these lakes down here, just for basically covering more ground at the end of the day. They're a whole lot harder to handle than a 12 or a 14. 16 is a lot harder to handle. The hook set's a lot different. There's a lot of different things that'll come into play as you increase length on rods. But at the end of the day, you'll catch more fish if you can handle them. Sure will. So anyway, you'll get an idea when you fish maybe 12-footers what you want to do. But B&M poles make a particular rod to be used with these rigs. It's called the Capps Coleman Trolling Series rod. It's a heavier rod than their jig pole, but it's not as heavy as their Pro Staff rod. So basically there's 3 different sensitivities out there for that's the basics as far as a hand pole or a long pole. That BGJP is called Buck's Graphite Jig Pole. It's probably the lightest. That's the lightest one. The mid-grade would be the CNC, the Capps Coleman Trolling Pole. Then there's a Pro Staff pole. Then this year they have a super stiff pro staff. So basically there's 4 there, and they all move up the chart in stiffness as you go up to that super stiff. So pick whatever you can logically land a fish with and feels comfortable to you. I'd say, but honestly, the lightest pole will get you more bites at the end of the day that you can deal with. Yes, sir.
My bad, John. Trouble, I've never trouble. How do you hook your minnows?
How do I hook my minnows? I always hear that a lot. I, without fail, will always hook a minnow as far out to the end of his lips as I can. The further out you can hook that minnow, the more action he's going to have. You think that he's hooked so far out, he probably won't stay on a couple minutes, but honestly, that is really a tough little, his lips are really, really tough. Through both lips, right at the very end. Yeah. If you get back very far on his snout, you're going to get into a lot tougher material right there, and he can't move. He cannot be effective at basically creating some vibration for you and not look real. So don't hook him too far back. Now, where we started was always hook him through the eyes. My grandfather hooked a million of them through the eyes, and that's how we were taught. But honestly, you want to have that hook and minnow in line with each other, if you will. When you hook the minnow hook him from the bottom up, you got to hook him from the bottom up. The minnow should trail right in line with the hook. It'll keep your hook in the right position to get a bite and catch it. Versus if you hook it through the eye, your minnow's wanting to lay to its side. However, I still know people that do that, and that minnow's trying to right itself. So what's he doing when he's trying to right itself? He's creating a lot of vibration just because he can't. And who knows, that might be sometimes the ticket to get a bite. But honestly, I usually always hook them through the lip. Got you there. Anything else? There's a lot to talk about. I know minnow rigging, but if I got you headed the right direction, maybe? Yeah. You should go to the B&M Poles website. There's all kinds of info there. There's also videos in the crappie section back here, and we have a section on minnow rigging in some of those videos. Find the B&M that I think you'll enjoy it. It was a tough time of year in July when we did that, and you'll get a lot from it, I'd say. But I mentioned pole holders, and you asked me where should the pole be positioned. I like every rod to be identical out there as far as the adjustment from the water's surface to the tip of the pole. I like to have them all exactly the same. That will vary according to how windy it is where you're fishing. I mean, you can't very well have them 3 inches off the water if you're dealing with some whitecaps. So you have to adjust that accordingly, but try to make them all the same, because when you're scanning those poles back and forth and trying to watch depth finders and everything else, if something's out of place, it really jumps out at you pretty quick. Try to keep them equal distance, just so you're covering a block of water effective, and it makes a big difference sometimes. Minnows, when they swim, they pretty well stay in a school and separate the same distance. I try to mimic, what would be natural. So it's important to keep them all the same, I think.
Hey, Ronnie,
Yes,
typically
sir.
how much distance do you have between rod tips?
That answer is going to vary, and it's going to vary according to how deep I'm fishing. If I'm fishing 30, 40 foot deep, I've caught crappie 63 foot deep at Percy Priest Lake in a tournament before. You can't very well have poles very close together. That's an extreme. But I'm telling you, the deeper, the more spread you're going to have. The other situation would be the heavier the structure, or the particular structure that I'm wanting to fish. I may bunch them up tight. My tips might not be 8-10 inches apart. If I'm fishing a single jig set, typically that's what I'm using. If I'm that shallow and that tight, I'll have them close. I want the hook right where the fish is going to be, not out here wasting my time and his too. So those adjustable holders that I spoke of earlier, the independents, they will allow you to do things like that, where the T-bar will not. Big advantage to have those. Any other questions about the minnow rig? Man, I've spent a lot of time, and I know there's a lot more to spend, but yeah, you got a question? No? any other thing at all about them. So you got to go to your home lake. You got to try to scrap up some old rods, unless you're going to buy some new B&Ms over here tonight, and get out there in that 25-foot water. Don't get around any structure. Put about 3 or 4 out. 3, 4, whatever you think you can handle, depending on how windy it is. And pretty clear.
Right now it's just a little murky.
Little murky.
Just a little.
25. Is it 25 everywhere?
No,
No. What's the average?
probably 20.
20. Drop it down there about 15 foot, about pole deep on a 14-foot rod. I'm talking pole deep on a 14-foot rod. That means the sinker's at the bottom of the pole. Pole deep. It won't be fishing 14. It'll be about 12 actually. Get you a pack of those minnow rigs. Bait them up real good. Don't go out there when the wind's blowing 30 miles an hour. Or if you do, make sure you can control the boat and try it for me. And I guarantee you, if you got many crappie in that lake, you're gonna catch a fire of them out there suspended.
Not here, but there.
That don't matter. As long as they crappie. That's right.
That's 6 degrees.
I bet you will discover a new way to catch crappie that you will like. If you're in a hurry to get a mess for a fish fry in the afternoon, that'll probably be the one you'll pick. Anymore, on these competitive circuits that we're in, you cannot compete typically with one rod. There's just no way. You better be able to manage a multi-pole set, whatever the state law allows. Some states 2, 3, 4 poles per person. Some more than that, no limit whatsoever. But it's a juggling act sometimes. We wish we didn't have to fish that many, but most often, more hooks in front of the right structure is going to put more fish in your boat at the end of the day, and that's just the truth.
Hey, before they set rod limits, tell them what we did.
Oh, there was lots of times we fished mini rods, as many as possible, unbelievable amounts of rods, and caught unbelievable amounts of fish. Down in Florida, you know, we fished down there for quite a few years on the Harris Chain Lakes, quite a few Griffin and Lee. There's a bunch of lakes. I don't believe that there's 5 hanging pieces of structure in all those lakes together. We never get hung up. It's basically a big sand pit. So it allowed us to use a whole lot of rods and not worry about any hang-ups, if you will. The water was stained up pretty dingy with green algae growth. It was really green, matter of fact, kind of comparable to Washington down here in your part of the world. And man, did we catch a lot of fish just by sheer covering real estate.
You try to find creek channels and
That's always important. I don't care if it can be. I recall winning in Florida on a ledge that went from 11.4 to 11.6 on my depth finder. That's pretty subtle. But we followed about a 300, 400 yard stretch of that ledge, and that subtle of a drop was holding those fish. You get off of it 50 feet either way, and I don't think we caught a fish all day. It is amazing. But when you do get a bite on these minnow rigs, pay attention to everything. What depth he come from? Was he on the top hook? Was he on the bottom hook? Was he moving fast? Did you happen to be moving fast and get the bite, or was you just sitting still? There's a lot of things that rig will tell you. In the fall, when you pick it up, if your minnow look rough, looks like he's about to die, you got him in some bad water. However, a lot of times the bottom minnow might be completely dead and crinkled up after 15, 20 minutes fishing time, and the top one will be perfect. Well, that means you're just a little bit out of range on where the comfort level is as far as oxygen level. Let that rig tell you some info. It tells a whole lot of stories if you'll just pay attention to them. That's the beauty of fishing with more than one hook out there. A lot of times that rig will tell us a lot of stuff that a guy with a jig pole and a crappie nibble on it is never going to understand. He's never going to know. He's dropping it down in bad water all day. My minnow's already told me, man, you in some bad water. I'm going to be ahead of him right off the bat with some live bait. So that's one advantage of that. Yes, sir.
This is local technical.
Okay.
Catch a crappie that's 13 inches long, and that's
he won't shrink much.
I know, but it's free.
Yeah, in Mississippi, they're required to be over 12 inches to be legal. They have to break the line, if you will, on a 12-inch golden rule. Somewhere in the middle of that line is 50, is breaking it. How about that? But honestly, if it's that close, you need to toss him, because there's plenty more of them out there, and we only, most of the time, we never have to worry about measuring the fish. If we're thinking about keeping one to eat, I won't make, there's no sense in, if it's that bad, you need to go bass fishing or something, because usually you can catch plenty of fish and toss anything that's even close to 12 inches and move right. And I enjoy the fact now that Mississippi has taken a stand and basically managing their crappie for a little bit better size. And boy, it's a lot of fun to get down there and catch 12, 13, 14-inch fish consistent. I remember the days when the limit was 50 fish and no size limit down here. That's a long time ago, but I remember walking through those woods dragging stringer of males that we caught wading. That was like dragging deer out of the woods. A lot of fun about the second week of April. But when it lake's high, boy, don't go do that. You'll be addicted. Whew. We also have a wading rod. B&M makes a wading rod that was designed way back when. Wading used to be allowed in tournaments. Anymore, we can't wade fish in a tournament. So that's out for us as far as doing much of it during competitively. But boy, is it fun. I'm talking, it's more fun listening to turkey gobble to me. I'd rather catch a big old black male in that understory of those ironwoods than about anything if I can get in a spot where there's some fish. It's a lot of fun. It's gonna happen soon now. It won't be long. You boys wade? Y'all set in the boat. All right. But I'm gonna set in the boat when I get about your age too, I hope. Yeah. Them fire ants are bad down here. Be careful. Any other questions at all? Boy, I'm rambling. Y'all better ask me some questions. I really think I can help you catch a few more if you will.
That's a rod mount for a pontoon. It's got the rails. And our fishing chairs are actually outside the rails.
Right. You know what? Check Driftmaster out. They have, and if you get down to it, they will custom build a set of holders to fit your boat. You basically called up David Brainerd, owner of the company. He is as particular about making it right as anyone I know. He will custom make you a rod rack for the back and front too, or even two of them, or whatever you want made to fit your dimensions. And he's done that for me in the past, and he don't mind doing that. And I guarantee you, you'll like it. If that's the route you're gonna go, and you know, on a pontoon boat, you just about have to because of that rail. You're not gonna be able to mount it independent. It'd be long enough to get up over the rail. If it was, you still wouldn't be efficient at. Long story, I'd get him to make you one, or pick some T-bars that'll fit for you, or independent ones that'll maybe mount along your rail. You can find something, but try it so you can at least be in arm's reach, or you and her can be in arm's reach of all the rods. Don't try to spread them out so far you can't manage them. And just get right on the front of that boat or the back, either one. Manage the speed and give it a shot. You can't really manage the boat from the back, but a lot of people do pull out the back, long line out the back, just like Roadrunners, and they'll pull pretty fast on a windy day and just let them rip. And you've seen them do it, I'm sure. In the springtime, pretty effective. Pretty effective way to catch them. If you're fishing with a single jig, just let it rip.
And that farthest lake, how you go in deep water?
You know, they'll get up at White's Crossing and head this way. Deep water, they catch them right down the face of the dam. They catch them everywhere. Very hard to miss them at Sardis. It's clear, you need to get on down pretty deep. You know, 18, 20 is not too deep, 20 plus if it's clear. But in the spring, we'll never forget it. I can tell you the year it was a year cell phones come out. We was all, couldn't believe we was talking to somebody while we were fishing. But I told Steve, I said, this lake is so full of fish. I've never seen so many fish in a lake in my life. I said, how about this? Take me out here where we can't catch a fish. See if you can find a spot. And Steve run wide open right down the middle of the lake, and he stopped in 43 foot of water. before I got the second pole out, the first one I done put out had a fish on it. I said, it's ridiculous. It's the truth. It's the truth. We was about pole deep, about 12, 14 foot deep, how deep we were fishing. It was pretty stained up. That lake has produced, over the years, more fish, I'd have to say, for us and most people, than any other lake I can compare it to. It's an amazing lake. And now it's got some huge fish in it because of this 12-inch size now. So Sardis is my pick for numbers and size in Mississippi. It is my pick. Yes, sir.
Okay. I fished some of these Mississippi rivers.
Oxbow.
Are you still catching any crappie in those? Down where I'm at, some like the old timers down there got their carp.
Yes, sir. The carp's getting in everybody's way. They are. Honestly, I'd have to say on the subject of the carp, the big head, silver carp. Those carp are a great excuse for the fish not to bite for most people. I'm telling you, those carp have been residents in my lake, my home lake, Reelfoot Lake, for 20 plus years. I caught one of the first one of those carp, and it's documented in Fishes of Tennessee by Dr. Ettenmeyer from Knoxville. He drove all the way from Knoxville to see what I had, and it happened to be a silver carp that I caught back when we was in high school. Since then, the population of those fish has exploded. We fish them around those carp at Reelfoot every day that you're out there in the summer months. You're going to get some in your boat, I'm telling you. But honestly, at Reelfoot Lake, we're catching bigger and nicer quality crappie than I've ever in my life caught. So I can't blame the fish for being bad fishing at Reelfoot.
Old timers lived there.
Yes, sir.
There's all kinds of crappie. I'm the best I've known.
I'm-
They have to go to the White River Lake now.
I feel you pain in some of those oxbows. You know why? Because they're so shallow. Those carp will cause such a ruckus that you actually have such a muddy, murky water. They stirring up the water so bad. I think really it does affect the bite big time. And you know that's one of the drawbacks to having so many fish per acre in a place like that. But honestly, we love Washington. Huge fish there, but no carp. I don't know if there's carp. We didn't see any this year. We fished it. But like Whittington, down on the river, it's a huge oxbow, Whittington Lake. I don't know if you know where that's at. Well, it's not far from Greenville, Mississippi, and we should have won the national championship out of that lake. We was bridesmaids, but anyway, we caught enough fish out of that thing to win, and basically just didn't get them to the scales. We ended up second place in the national championship a couple years ago, right there at Greenville. We fished Lake Whittington, and those fish were as good a quality as they were in Washington, or better. And it was consequently won in Washington. But I think we had the better fish on the hook, and I'm sure the boys say the same story. But that's just the way the cards fell that time. But still, they are producing wonderful quality fish down there at the right times and places. I just get right in there with the carp. Don't let them bother me. Try not to disturb them any more than you have to. But yeah, they're coexisting pretty good, I can tell you. But it's been a while at Reelfoot. They're still doing great. Yes, sir. Any other questions about the carp or what?
When you get into a bunch of fish in one spot, do you stop and work them?
He asked me if I get in a bunch of fish in one spot, do I just stop? Well, it's a good thing to stop. Yeah, you get by. Don't go looking for some if you got them found already, you know. However, my answer on that, if I'm competitive and trying to win a tournament, yeah, there'd be a lot of factors come into play depending on how big those fish are coming and what kind of size I'm in, versus a happy day and catching some for a fish fry. Big difference there on what my answer would be. I get into places like that. For example, we're getting ready to go to Neely Henry, Gadsden, Alabama. There's places down there where you can sit end on end and catch 20, 30 plus fish out of say a big stake bed or a brush top or whatever. And they never get any bigger. It's the same fish. Those kind of places, I can't say this to be total truth. I can't say I never caught a big fish after that kind of situation has happened, because I have. But most often, if you're in the same size fish, you're probably not going to get the one you want to win the tournament. You got to get out of that. Big females, they won't be bunched up too tight, like some of the little males will. And when you can tell the difference in the color, then you know right quick what you're catching, males versus females. Those males will be most often smaller, more aggressive, and they'll bite earlier, they'll bite quicker. The big females, sometimes you won't even know they bite when they bite, the ones I'm looking for. And those small minnows come into play sometimes, and the shallower those fish move with an egg sac, the more careful they'll be. They get in 3 or 4 foot of water, right in the prime of spawn, the water temperature's in the 60s, hitting 60 plus. They are real careful fish. They didn't get big being no fool. So little depressions, they want to hide as much as they can, but they know they have to be in shallow water basically for their eggs to hatch. They have to have some penetration from the sunlight to hatch those eggs. That's why at Grenada you don't see fish spawning in 25 foot of water like you would at Kentucky Lake. The clarity of that water means everything to basically the eggs hatching and where they're going to select a place to build a nest. So that all comes into play, but water clarity is very important on how deep you'll fish sometimes.
How do you manage the amount of rods that you have if they're really biting you?
How do I manage the amount of water?
Rods that you
The rods. You know, we've got a lot of experience messing with those rods, but I recommend just trying a couple to start with. And then when you get in a place where there's not any structure, you can deal with 3 or 4, especially if you got a good calm wind day, which don't happen much in the spring, but you can find some wind breaks too. If you got any kind of elevation around you, you know, cliffs, bluff banks, whatever, try to make sure you start this out on a place where you don't have to fight that wind all day long. It's going to be a lot more fun for you. If I was going to begin multi-pole fishing, I probably wouldn't advise you to start with this double minnow rig even. If I was going to be fishing pretty shallow water, stained water, I would go with one single jig. I'm getting into the next group of poles that's in my boat everywhere I go. That first group of poles was a minnow rig. The second group is a set of BGJPs, which is B&M's lightest rod. They'll be coupled most often with a 6-pound line on a 16th ounce jig. One jig. No split shot, no sinker of any kind. One jig on 6-pound line. Spinning rig. That rig will fish 80% of the water that we'll want to fish with a single rig. Down here, I'll move to an 1/8 ounce size at Grenada, Sardis, some of the Mississippi lakes where the fish are a lot better, bigger. I'll move to an 1/8 ounce head on an 8-pound line. And I tell you what, those two sizes are going to cover 95% or more of the water that we'll fish in a year's time. But that jig set is so fun to fish. When we want to have fun fishing, I carry my wife Kelly right here fishing. We're fishing, 2 or 3 foot of water. When those fish start to color up down here, we'll find some of the thickest structure we can along the bank where the water's rising typically in the spring. Some of those weeds, they call them coffee weeds in Mississippi, but actually they're Suspania is what that is. They call them those big tall weeds, got the long beans on them. There's quite a few of those remnant weeds still left, and boy, those fish love to get in those. But I love to push a jig set right into a thick patch of weeds. And it's on, I'm talking, sometimes you get in a nest, in area where there's a lot of males, we may have about 6 rods and we have 5 out of 6 down. I'm talking, it's fun now, it's a lot of fun. Really too much to handle, but still fun when it happens. And that happens to us down here quite often in the spring. So anyway, I believe I'd give it a shot with just one hook. I always like to fish a single hook tipped with some sort of scent. I recommend a little smaller minnow than you would use on a live bait rig. If you're going to be moving slow and you're counting on a scent bite versus a reaction strike bite, you need to put some scent on there. Not to say they won't bite, but I'm telling you, day in, day out, you'll get more bites with some natural scent. I love to fish a small minnow. I'll also love when the male fish start to turn dark. White ones, black ones, both.
First shot first. Could Lynn Grissom come to Southside Customer Service? Lynn Grissom to Southside Customer Service. Thank you.
When those fish start to color up, won't be just a few more weeks. I love to tip a jig with a wax worm, the little white mealworms. Very, very, very sought after. I don't think they want to eat it. I think they want to kill it. When the male fish start knocking a nest, they're very aggressive to kill that thing, and the bite is very different than it would be any other time of the year. Usually a male will come up when you get that thing close to his nest. He can't stand it, and if you're watching your tip of your rod close enough, you'll be able to tell if it's a male fish or a female fish. That's pretty big, but I can do it at the right time of year because he just wants to kill it, not necessarily eat it. But buddy, when he starts to kill it, he's in trouble because I've got him in the boat pretty quick. I'm telling you, if you'll use wax worms at that particular time of the year, that's when they're most effective. Other times of the year, no. Minnows are always the best. But try that. If you got access to buy those, you can even get them online. So get you some mealworms and give it a shot during the spawn.
So when is that for, say, Sardis? What time is that, like mid-March?
It's going to start pretty quick. By the second week in April, it ought to be in full swing in these Mississippi lakes. Probably earlier than that if we get warmer than normal. And I promise you, the male fish will stay right there all the way through into June. When it's hot, you thinking, oh, gone. They are ragged out pretty bad. They have had a rough few weeks. Those fish will not be as healthy as they was at the start. And their tails will be all tore up and bloody, and the fish will be smaller. But I'm telling you, in May, into May and June, is pretty well at home some of my most consistent days for a few reasons. Those fish are going to be in the best. You already figured out where they are because you've already caught some of them. There's still fish there on those places. They pick these out prior to the spawn, and man, they're religious about it. There'll be fish there that won't bite maybe when you were fishing when they were aggressive, but they're there. And I promise you, in June, after a lot of fishing pressure gets off, they'll bite again. They'll bite. But typically that time of year by June, the wind is not 40 mile an hour like it is in April. You start dealing with a lot less wind as it warms up. That's a lot more fun fishing for me. At home, I can be real consistent in May and June, and no other crappie fishermen on the whole lake. And I'm catching male fish on structure, typically on cypress logs that lay on the bottom. Man, they love to nest on those logs at home. And I might catch 8 or 10 nice fish off of one log. I have caught as high as 30 fish off of one log, just staying right on top of it with a jig set, tipped with wax worms. I don't even buy minnows when it starts getting hot. Honestly, that's what we use is wax worms. Yes, sir.
Why do you use the larger jig head instead of the 132nd?
It's all about real estate for us most of the time. However, if I could find a situation, and I have in the fall of the year, where they didn't want to bite such a heavy weight, and I was maybe fishing shallow enough to accommodate a 32nd or a 24th, something smaller than a 16th, I would definitely use it. But at the end of the day, time is my enemy. And I'm trying to cover as much ground as I can to win a tournament. So my 16th is very, very, I hold it pretty tight, honestly, on a 6 pound line. If I get deeper or trying to cover more real estate, like I said, down here in Grenada, in Sardis, we'll fish an 8th on an 8 pound. And I don't like to fish that single jig set more than 6, 7, 8 foot deep. If I get any deeper than that, I'm likely to be minnow rigging. Unless I'm direct structure fishing, I'll be minnow rigging more than likely. I'm just covering water, more than likely.
Do you pay attention to jig colors or what?
Yeah, we have our favorite, and they're not many. I get asked all the time about colors. I can tell you, whatever color is your favorite color, keep using it because you know why? You've got confidence in it that it's going to catch some fish, okay? And I got mine. But I have, without question, seen a preference at certain times of color. And that's going to happen all over, and sometimes it won't happen at all. But I have seen fish prefer, for me, a pink jig head in a lot of places. A hot candy pink, not the light colored pink, but a really dark colored hot candy pink. There's some jig heads on the shelf. That happens to be my favorite color. That's an 1/8 ounce. Pro-Built makes these. You'll be seeing a lot better quality jig hit the market, I guarantee it. We have always had our jig heads custom made. We've always had them made and tied, poured exactly the way we want them. I use Gamakatsu hooks on my jig heads. They have a very small barb, but they are so sharp. If he touches it, he's in my boat. Don't go short and spend a little less money on something as small as a jig head. It's almost like going duck hunting with a shell that won't kill the bird. You don't want to spend $2 or $3 on a shell if that's what's going to be needed. So, that being said, that's one of my favorite colors. I'll couple that with some color that includes chartreuse. Always. It almost never fails unless I'm in super clear water, and I love the color white. I'll use a white sometimes in clear water, but boy, do I lean hard on chartreuse. Any color of chartreuse or shade of chartreuse that you can get that will basically accommodate the other. One darker, one be lighter. A light, there's a tube made by Mid-South. There's a tube made by almost everybody. Bobby Garland, Southern Pro, all of them are making them. But it'll be a dark chartreuse on the front and a lighter tone chartreuse on the back. I call it lime and chartreuse. I'm a big fan of glow material. These are glow. I've always been a fan of glow. I'm telling you, there's something to it. That's my opinion on that. You might not be, but I love glow. So if you will couple this hot candy pink with a lime and chartreuse color, watch it pop, because it will. That's our favorite color, Reelfoot Lake. I can catch them anytime they bite me. They're Reelfoot with that color down there. And so we do use nickel sometimes. We'll use a straight lead head sometimes. More often than not, I use a hot candy paint head, and I won't hardly ever change.
Blade or no blade on the jig?
No blade unless I'm moving.
Okay.
I got some speed behind me. Yes, sir. It's always an attractant to get some vibration. And Roadrunners, there's quite a few options out there that'll be a bladed head. I do believe they'll attract some attention moving fast. So yeah, but going slow, no, it's just too much air. All the time. You know, there's a lot happening right there. I'm watching them pole tips. Me and Steve are combined, and I'm watching the depth finder. I'm watching where I'm headed. I'm watching my GPS. I'm watching there's a 360 that we all use now just about to be competitive by Humminbird. The new transducer. If you hadn't got one, I guarantee you'll get one if you're serious about fishing. Those 360 transducers are sitting there showing me what's coming at me. For instance, that pole was a stump. My poles are out 12, 14, my 14-foot rods are stuck out the front of my boat. I got a ring that's 15 foot on my screen. 15, and then my next ring will be 30, so on and so forth. But when that pole gets at 15 foot, I know my bait's right on that stump, whether it's sticking out of the water or not. Versus a stake bed or whatever, I can see it coming at me, and I'm approaching those things. I know exactly where my hooks are and exactly where the structure's at. I can just about tell you when you're gonna get a bite, which is a wonderful thing. Well, we've come a long ways in technology. But if you hadn't had a 360 in front of you, you should try it. If your buddy's got one, go with him sometime. Whew, it'll blow your mind. Humminbird's got some great stuff out there. Check it out if you hadn't already. And if you start talking now, Santa Claus will probably listen to you if you start early. So any other questions? I've rambled a lot, y'all. Hopefully added something to your arsenal to catch a few more fish.
What about these
Yes, sir.
jigs that have the multiple hooks on them?
The multiple hooks, yes. You know, there's a Rockport Rattler out there that does have they have triple hooks on them, and that's basically for a reaction bite. Moving slow, I don't have a lot of confidence in all that out there. I can catch him with one. I don't need three. But when they're striking, it's just like pushing crankbaits or pulling crankbaits. Those 3 hooks are going to be a little bit of an advantage to you when one strikes at it. There's all sorts of other things that's hitting the market these days. I can't say that any of them out there don't work. They all do work. It's just a matter of the situation when you use them sometimes. So, guys, we're not in any hurry to rush off. If I can still help anybody get rigged up a little bit different maybe and help them out, save some time and catch a few more, we're here. We're in no hurry to get out of here. Again, one thing I have to just say, because it's just with my heart, B&M Pole Company is really the people that put us right here in front of you today. And boy, they've listened to a lot of things we've told them over the years with these mini rigs and the poles that they have on the market. And I firmly believe that they've listened enough to have the best quality crappie rods, any panfish rods, and now they're moving into catfish too. Pay them a little bit of attention on the shelf. I know there's a lot of selections out there, but I don't think you'll beat a B&M rod. Sure do. Before we go, another B&M product that I've brought today is called a Crappie Saver. A lot of you people down in Mississippi need one that's a little bit longer than that 10-inch that you buy from Frable on the market. I designed one back quite a few years ago, and B&M Poles, again, they believed in what I had made, and they put it on the market. And grab one of those. It's over in the box, I believe. Where's it at? Run and get that. It's in the hallway. I'm gonna give somebody one of those tonight right here. But anyway, I'll talk about it for a second. It's basically a fish checker, if you will, for measuring crappie specifically. Not only does it measure fish, it can estimate and pretty well get close to the age of your fish. And it's gonna pretty well get close to the weight of your fish, given that it's in the spring. Because that's what I based all of my data on, was spring weights that we caught in tournaments. And they were also based on the lakes that we fish tournaments on. So I'm not gonna have data for your lake included in it, but I do have all the big lakes that we fish tournaments on. That's where it all come from. Kentucky, Grenada, everywhere we travel, down D'Arbonne, Louisiana, and Texas, and wherever. But every crappie that comes out of a particular
Good
lake.
afternoon, Bass Pro shoppers, and welcome to Crappie Madness event and sale. Join us at the center of the store to enjoy fun for the whole family with a casting challenge and free photo download. Kids who complete both activities will receive a free inflatable bobber. From 2 to 4 p.m. today, sample Uncle Buck's fish fry in the general store while supplies last. And join us again at the center of the store at 2 p.m. for a crappie fishing seminar by B&M professional anglers Ronnie Capps and Steve Coleman. The first 25 attendees will receive a free protective storage box. Also, all attendees will have the opportunity to enter in a sweepstakes for a 2018 Tracker Panfish 16 boat. As always, thank you for shopping at Bass Pro Shops at the Pyramid, where we all live downstream.
Anyway, I don't know where I was, but talking about the Crappie Saver, there's quite a few things it'll tell you versus the weight versus the length. But I really made it to secure a fish for me to be able to pop his air bladder and let him live. Because we have to weigh in live fish, not dead fish. This happens to be one of the checkers that I'm talking about. So it's called the Crappie Saver. B&M has them online. You can buy them from their online store. Some stores do carry them. I know that Bass Pro's out of them. Most of the ones on the shelf here are the Frables, and they're about 10 inches long, which you need a 12-inch measuring board here. The Golden Rule is what's supposed to be the board, but this is exactly the same thing. It'll measure a fish all the way out to 16 inches. If you catch a fish that will exceed 16 inches, Very rare, very rare. But I'm telling you, if he or she will exceed 16 inches at Grenada or Sardis or some of these Mississippi lakes, more than likely, if it's April, May, June, not June, May, March, April, May, you got you one that's over 3 pounds. So a 3 pound crappie will barely fit in this. Matter of fact, Kelly caught one that was 303 or 302 or something. We had a little trouble because she was so blowed out with it, filled out with eggs, to get her in and out of this checker, but it did measure her. So anyway, I'm about to give this away to the guy or girl that traveled the furthest to listen to me today. So tell me somebody that's traveled a good ways to get here just for crappie. I bet I got one back here in the back. I know you were way off, girl. So anybody further than like Lake of the Ozarks? Where? How far is Lake of the Ozarks? How many hours? Not going 800 mile an hour now, but how many hours?
About 350 miles.
You further than 350 miles?
Travel 8 hours to
8 hours.
get here. 400 miles.
There's your
400 miles. Can you do it? I don't know if those Toledo Bend crappie will fit in this checker.
It's going to be full.
It's pretty big.
It'll be crowded.
It's a pretty big checker. Look, when you drop one in, turn it backwards and drop him in like you would normally hold him, and he'll be right. Try to remember that. It's a little trouble if you try to put him in right with the checker faced out, but it works perfect. If your partner puts him in, it works perfect every time. So anyway, there's quite a few things on here. I'll try to show you. I hate to jerk the sticker off, but there's a spot for inserting a needle. If you catch a 14-inch crappie in the tournament in 25, 30 foot of water, and it's middle of June, and it's the swim bladder's expanded, you have to get that out pretty quick. It's like you having a real bad earache. The way to do that is measure the fish. If he's 14 inches, you find the 14 spot on this little slit and put in a hypodermic needle that you can buy from Tractor Supply in the veterinarian supplies. Pop that bladder, stick it, get the fish lined up in there perfect, and stick it straight in that 14 hole. I guarantee you, you're gonna hit center punch on the bladder, and it'll let the air out. Let it sit there about 3 to 4 seconds, and then pull the needle out, put the fish in the live well, and I'll be telling you what, there's a huge percentage of them making it. So anyway, this happens to be y'all's. Yeah, try it out down Toledo. Ben. Yep. Okay, any other questions, y'all, at all? Nobody's leaving, so I know you're interested. That's great. That's good news. Somebody fire a question. I know I've rambled a lot about what I talked about, but yeah, I want to hear some. Yeah, go for it. Brimfish, in May and June, go to, not now, right? You're not going pretty quick, right? It's usually getting a whole lot better in May and June, even into July, actually, but it's hot by then. But I would try starting on that Rat Island shoreline. It's called Rat Island shoreline. Long shoreline, more than a mile long. Rat Island shoreline. They catch a bunch of bluegill over there. There'll be some spawning areas that'll be marked that you're not supposed to use an outboard in, just trolling motor only. And it's going to be pretty easy to find those. So anyway, it's solid pads up through there. But they fish the holes in the pads. They catch a lot of really nice brim over there. If you want to get in the shade, any of the shoreline at Reelfoot's productive. I'm going to tell you catch brim anywhere on Reelfoot Lake, fishing the shoreline in those big cypress trees. You know I'm bad to hunt the shade about May and June. You won't be in the shade. Late in the afternoon, I even see some people that are using fly rod and catch a lot of them fly fishing. So a lot of bluegill down there. We catch them when we board to death catching crappie sometimes, but not too often do we chase bluegill. I catch a lot of crappie fishing sometimes. They're getting the right spot. Those wax worms on those logs, sometimes bluegill won't leave me alone. some big as your hand, bluegill. Nice one. So, yeah, wax worm is very hard to beat to use on the tip, whatever you use. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Sure. Yep. It'll hook up to the part that don't rotate. It'll clamp. You're set. You just, that clamp that's on that 360 will fit above the rotation part. The part that rotates, there's a place above that where it'll fit firm and it'll lock right to it. Be careful all the time to notice that there's an arrow on that transducer that has to be pointed exactly like your boat's pointed. If you get her off left or right, it'll throw you off some kind of crazy. It's not a good thing. So be particular about paying attention to that. I've bumped mine, and after a little while, I'm like, golly, this ain't right. And you know, I think you're about 9. It's a little steeper than 3. But you may get a deal here today. I know a lot of stuff's on sale. Don't know. Well, I'm telling you, for the time and effort and, well, might help you out there. Look, honestly, the time that you'll save and the fish that you'll put in the boat in a quicker length of time, it's going to pay for itself. And the amount of hangs that you're not going to get, as opposed to getting bad shape, not knowing what's coming at you in front of you. It's amazing what we're looking at. But I'm looking at the fish, I'm looking at the structure, everything.
We have a question on Facebook. How to fish with no depth finder?
How to fish with no depth finder, you know. I bet you know that answer, right? Yeah. You know, I'm gonna find the depth one way or another. I don't care where I'm at or what I'm doing. Or the depth is always very important. So I'm gonna drop whatever rig. If it's a minnow rig, I'm dropping it to the bottom right away, and I'll crank her up one time, put it in the holder. I usually start low this time of year, or any time of the year, most often, and then take off. And you know, when I see my sinker bumping and I'm coming up a ledge, I can kind of get a feel for that. But way back when, we used what we called, my grandfather called, a doodlebug, if you will, lead ball and a little cork with some number 9 tar twine on it, and we'd bounce that thing. We had bounced that thing endlessly to find the depth. And when that thing would start to go in a deep hole, you had to let out a little more string, and consequently it was typically getting ready to bump into a stump or a log. The action of the waves usually makes it a few inches to a few feet deeper sometimes around any kind of structure in any kind of lake that you're in. So we'd know he's getting close to a piece of structure. That was how we started. I'm telling you, that's been a long time ago. And boy, did we think the flasher was something else when we first had a Super 60 with a flasher, and we could tell the depth then. So that makes us real old, doesn't it? Yeah. We did. I promise. I didn't have any driver license. Steve was the only reason we could go, because he finally got some, and man, we went everywhere. I'm telling you, if it was a fish in the water, we'd try to get there. So it was kind of fun getting to explore new places. And if our parents and grandparents knew we'd traveled as far as we did with what we had, they'd probably want to kill us. Just best friends. He lived on the same body of water right at Reelfoot with me. We grew up right there, and boy, we got some stories. I'm talking some serious, some secrets probably. So no, not really. You know, I won't ever forget us sliding a 10-foot John boat in the back of his mama's station wagon, and going to the river. We had a 3.5 Mariner motor on that thing. Crossed the river in Missouri. It was in another state. Caught a boatload of fish. Caught so many fish, couldn't get back to the truck. We had so many fish in the boat, honestly, it wouldn't go up current with all of our junk. Never forget that. But boy, the worst part was that we let all that fish slime get in her car. Whew. I got a million stories just like it. So anyway, look, I often see a lot of fishermen out there with fisher women, if you will. And it's more and more these days. I see more women sitting beside their boyfriend, husband, or whoever, and going crappie fishing. I have my wife Kelly here, Kelly Capps, right here. She goes everywhere with me. She does a whole lot of hard work fishing, pre-fishing for some of these tournaments. We spend endless hours on the lake. But if any of you women want to give her a shout, she loves to talk. I promise, she does. She loves to talk and tell all the tales. We got some tales. So feel free to give her a shout before you get out of here. And gosh, I love to answer questions. Anybody got anything else? Girl, I know you got to have something for me. You come all this way. What? What is it? Oh, don't tell me that. You break my heart. I just knew you'd come all the way down here to see me. Forget that.
Hey, Ronnie, can you talk about what do you look at weather-wise? Does that
Weather-wise?
determine where you fish and how you fish?
Yes, sir. He mentions weather. That's something I hadn't even touched on. Without a doubt, our channel on our home TV very rarely leaves the Weather Channel. That is the one factor that will determine what's going to happen with my day almost every day, and where I'm going, what I'm going to do. Is it going to be safe I just put myself in a place where I'm hopeful to be safe, wind-wise, because I'm telling you, as cold as this water is, it's a rule of thumb, and I mentioned it yesterday. If you happen to fall in the water, you boys need to get a life jacket and put it on every time you leave the bank. And don't leave without it. All of y'all, everybody. Honestly, you fall in the water, 50 degrees. If it's 50 degrees when you fall in, you're supposed to have a 50-50 chance of living in that water. That's just kind of a rule of thumb. So, don't need that. And you're not going to live if we can't get you out of the water with a life jacket around you. It's a shocker when you hit cold water this time of year. And consequently, it's a very good time to catch crappie, and a lot of people won't get on the water. We just had a fatality at Kentucky Lake a few days ago. Kayaker fell out of the boat, drowned. Probably a great swimmer, don't know details, but I guarantee you the cold water was the factor. So whatever you do, they make these inflatables that you can put on under all your clothes, and you never know they're on. Right now, matter of fact, they may help keep you a little warmer. Try that. If you don't want an inflatable, get you one that's for real. They're a little uncomfortable sometimes, but I got a tip since we're talking about cold water fishing. Somebody may enjoy having it. I always have I've had a lot of broken fingers and cuts on my hands over the years, but my hands get really cold out there crappie fishing. Really cold a lot of times. When the wind's blowing, it's the worst. To retie some knots or bait a hook sometimes is a chore for us. Dry heat out of a heater is one thing, but I'm telling you, our go-to trick for keeping our hands warm, where we can at least tie knots, and it will last throughout the day, is to get a small 6-pack cooler full of water, hot water, out of your tap before you leave the house. Just a small roll top 6-pack cooler, the simple small cooler. We'll set that right in front of our minnow bucket typically. The minnow bucket's right here, or minnow cooler, whatever we're holding bait in, and we'll have that little cooler right beside it. I'm telling you, it's heaven sent when your hands are hurting, you can't even move them to tie a knot. Honestly, you roll that top and put that hand there for about 30 seconds, and you're tying knots just like a pro. That's how quick. You got wet hands, but hey, and you'll get spoiled on it if you're not careful. You'll want to keep both hands in all day long, but honestly, get you a towel, keep it with you, and dry them hands and get them in your pocket quick as you can. But that water has saved our life a bunch of times, and it's probably one of the edges that's won us some tournaments, if you want to know the truth, because some of the other boys was busy tying knots and we was busy catching fish. So it's a little bitty thing sometimes that'll help you out. Makes a big difference. Try that. You better try that at Kentucky Lake. Ooh, it gets cold up there. All right, anything else, y'all, that I can answer for you? Yes, sir.
How do you fish a Roadrunner?
How do I fish a Roadrunner? You know what? We've pulled them behind the boat. We've pushed them fast in front of the boat. But most often, the most success I ever seen with a Roadrunner is by casting to a shoreline, especially about the time those males get colored up in spring. April, March, into March, April, and May. At Kentucky Lake, they're bad to cast them to that pea gravel shoreline and slow retrieve. Down in Alabama, they love Roadrunners. They'll cast them, and just on a pea gravel bank, have a big time. But it's basically a retrieve. You can feel the vibration of that blade, and crappie will bite them now. I'm telling you, you catch a lot of fish that way, especially aggressive males. Yep. Anything else, y'all? Come on, I know somebody's got something. What? Yeah. Kentucky Lake. Yes, sir. You know what? It was one on the south end this year because I won it. Yes. The north end has had its years. It's not a bad end. I'm telling you, there's fish up there that can win anytime. The south end from Paris going south has been coming on for the last couple of years. That's where the tournament was won. We won it down south. I don't typically fish south, but it was pretty tough at Blood River up in that area this year. We had to get out of there, and we did, and it was a good move. So it'll go and come though. I've seen that Blood River as hot as a firecracker, and then I've seen it die. So, and Big Sandy will do the same thing. It's been a little bit off, but I think it's on the rebound right now. That's the way they'll do. They'll cycle, and it's crazy what all cycles with that. Real estate prices even cycle with good crappie fishing versus bad crappie fishing. Crazy, but it will happen. Just be patient with those places. Any other question? Any other lake that I can help out with? Come on, Ozarks. You been getting them, girl? You been catching them? Yep. Don't tell me. I don't want to hear it. I'm telling you, it was some pretty tough fishing there this fall. We ended up fishing, for your info, over on the Gravois Mills side. That's where we wound up fishing the tournament down there, and one angler of the year. Finished it up right out there in about 2 foot of water. It was a lot of old structure that come down that river, obviously when it was real high and flooded, and that structure is what we caught those fish on. It was lay down structure, and you could see it. It was so shallow, my trolling motor was in the mud most of the time. It was really shallow, and I'm in a 22-foot boat, so it was pretty tough to get close to one without making a lot of noise and disturbance. It sure was, but that's how we do it. That's how we call it. I'm sorry, girl. Yeah, I bet. It got cooler. Yeah. Well, one thing for sure, I don't know that there's another lake that's got as many fish as Lake of the Ozarks. It is so full of fish, unbelievable. Anywhere we could go was fish, but catching a big fish was a problem. Anything a pound or better was a nice one in a tournament fish actually. But that Indian Creek area has got some nice fish in it. We had the chance to win it. In Indian Creek, we let 2 of our biggest fish get away from us down there. So anyway, that happens. Any other questions, y'all? Yes, sir. You know what? My favorite is fish those pad stems right now, by far, without question. The trees will get good at the end of April. There will be a lot of male fish, especially the white ones, in the big part of like upper Blue Basin, the Grays Camp area up there. They'll get on select trees. They won't be on all of them, but there'll be some of those trees that will accumulate quite a few big male fish that you can find from time to time. But that don't happen toward the end of April, pretty late. If you want to catch fish up there right now, try to fish. If it's calm, try to fish that big basin down there and fish down low and fish in those stumps. But if you like to fish shallow, those black crappie are going to be the first hot thing on the menu really for us. And the biggest fish in the lake are black. White's pretty close, but I've seen some bigger blacks. So we'll be fishing really shallow, 18 to 2.5 foot maybe at the most. They catch some monster black ones and those lily pad stems. Yep, sure do. Any other questions about lakes or techniques or? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yes sir. Yes sir. Hey, you on my team? Yes sir. There's a big difference of opinion on a drag system. I'll carry people fishing sometimes, and that's the first thing they do is adjust the drag where they can rip that line off of there. That's way too light for me. Look, I want it to break if it has to. I don't want to slip a bit most of the time. Rare occasion where I'll set that drag where it will come off easy, and that's when I'm fishing ultra shallow and the fish is possibly going to get it hooked up before I can make the hook set. And if you don't do it, he'll break you off. I'm talking fishing. I'm talking nearly inches deep, because it's almost impossible sometimes to get to a 16 and get the hook set before he's already run out of the water with it. And if you got the drag too tight, he will break it sometimes. But you get him on a pretty good length of monofilament is my favorite line versus a fluorocarbon line. A monofilament will stretch for you, where a fluorocarbon won't have near as much stretch. Stretch is a must, I think, in fishing. That little stretch is going to be the difference in you breaking him off versus not. And I'm telling you, I remember using some of this fire line. There's a place for some of the no stretch lines, if you will. It's not in anything I do. I don't use any line that won't stretch, so I don't know. That's my 2 cents worth on that. I always give the example, if you try to pull somebody out of the stuck in the field, out of the mud in a truck with a rope versus a chain, it's about the same thing. You're probably going to tear his bumper off with a chain, but most of the time the rope, it'll stretch and pull him right on out versus tearing up something. That's about the way these minnow rigs work. When you set the hook into a piece of structure, if you got some stretch, you're not going to break your line. Most of the time when you stretch it, that hook will be a whole lot easier versus having line that won't stretch. So that's my favorite monofilament. Excuse me? How often I change line? You know, I change it pretty often if I'm in a lot of structure. We'll change it after a day or it depends on the amount of money we're fishing for. How about that? If we're out there fun fishing and having fun and pre-fishing, we probably won't change it for quite a few days. But you can bet one thing, it'll all be ripped off of there before the real game starts. That's another thing, fishing the depths that we've been talking about here. There's no reason for you to have a lot of line on your reel. I'll usually put 30, 40, 50 foot on a reel. I'm never going to use 25 foot most of the time. And that way it's a whole lot easier to get off and discard. And there's no, you're not wasting near as much line. So I don't need much line on my reel. If you put too much on there, it'll actually cause you a whole lot of problem. Trying to overcompensate for having to change it. I'd rather just put new line on it versus have a lot of line and reap it off. That's me. Personal preference of line? Yeah. My favorite line is that floral clear P line back there. Yeah. I've used a lot of it, a lot of different lines, and that line is a particular line that for some time I had line made for me. It got to be a headache, and I just quit dealing with it. But I'm still using my line, which is basically P line. That is very good line. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You try to use some of that, and whatever you really get comfortable using, stay with it, because I'm telling you, there's a lot of difference in line. Some of that stuff has a way lower breaking strength than other. Just get used to what kind of force you can put on it and still get by with it, without breaking it, because some of them are not the same for sure. Yeah. Okay. Yes, sir. What type of reel? Well, honestly, B&M, I will tell you 100%. there's all kinds of cheaper reels out there. You know, B&M has one spinning reel for 10 or 15 bucks. Those reels that you pay 5, 10, 15 bucks for are probably going to last you maybe 1 year if you're lucky. I'm telling you, the best quality reel that I know of, that I've had experience with, is the Fluger 6920. And it's the smallest spinning reel that you'll find in their whole entire case over there. It's going to run you about 50 bucks. But I'm telling you, I got some that's more than 6 years, 8 years old that I still abuse. Bad. They hit the water, no telling how many times every day. We abuse them, I'm telling you. So they've hung with us. I know they'll hang with you. Excuse me? B&M 100? Is that that's the only?
Pro Series,
yeah. They are a grade up from the other one. Honestly, the BMO 50, I believe. Here's the deal. My take on it. I want the lightest reel that I can find. If they made one lighter than that 6920, I'd buy it, because I'm putting 50 foot of line at most on it. I don't need much line. I don't need a very big spool, and I don't need that big reel in my way, really. But I do need it to do a job every time and be consistent. A good drag's important when you do need it. So some of them cheaper reels are not going to have a very good drag. If you do need it and it's not there, you done lost a tournament. You done lost some money in our book. So anyway, be careful with that. I'd go on and go out on the limb and get a good quality everything. If I'm serious about crappie fishing, you'll save money in the long run. You're going to be a lot less aggravated. You're going to catch more fish. And yeah, you won't have to come back over here and waste a whole day buying new poles, because you can be fishing. So it's pretty easy to figure out. Buy quality stuff, I think, right up front, if you're serious about it. Yeah. Yeah, I see both kinds, and definitely there is an advantage for me. I know people that use those bait casters where the eyes are facing the sky. I'm like, why? That don't even make sense to me, really. You want the line to play at the lowest gravity. It just plays much better. It's more simple. However, these bait casting reels are wonderful for winding and letting down and da-da-da-da. It's whatever you get used to, but honestly, day in and day out, I think you'll be more efficient with a spinner versus a bait caster. I for sure do. Melvin, what do you use, girl? What kind of reel do you use? You're not a Zebco 33 kind of girl yet. She's probably caught more fish than all of us in here. Yeah. She fishes at Lake of the Ozarks, sends me pictures of big old monsters I never see when I get down there. And so anyway, I'm coming back though. I might get one this year, you never know. Girl, I was so busy down there, I couldn't even eat. We stayed on the water almost round the clock. When it get dark, we quit fishing and we start scanning. We start looking. I could find a lot of stuff structure-wise a lot easier after the sun sets or on a cloudy day. And lots of times we'd just ride for days and locate, trying to find some fish. And I've never in my life seen so many piers on the lake, docks, if you will, whatever. Woo-wee. I couldn't fish them in a lifetime. A lot of fish under those docks. Everybody's got their own brush tops. So. Excuse me? Slingshot? Well, yeah, that's not my priority technique, but I can do it. And it is a lot of fun. B&M also makes one of them. If you're interested in trying that, you're a bass fisherman, I bet you'd have fun doing it. Yep. Sling. This shooting docks it's won a national championship before at Kentucky Lake. Sure has. Okay, y'all, any other questions? I know I'm losing some interest. Hurt my feelings. Be back at 2 o'clock for sure. You better come up with some more questions for me at 2 o'clock. How about that?
You don't know the way I feel.
I do. I might learn something myself. I enjoy hearing other stories too.
When you fish off of pier, how do you hook that minnow?
Well, I'm telling you, I like the lip hook, but I know the eyes is pretty effective sometimes.
What about right by that fit on the top of the
And then the tail, huh? That's the next option, right? See, I might learn a few things. I'll listen to you. Hey, I'll try it too, boy. You better believe it.
Well, we need some advice.
Look, I sure appreciate you coming out and listening to us ramble. I can tell without a doubt everybody here has a genuine interest to catch a crappie. And hopefully I helped you out a little bit. Anyway, we'll be back at 2. Thanks a million.
We enjoyed it.
Yes, sir.